So starting the test drive in this Model X still has plenty of pep in it. Now it doesn't feel as fast as a P100D or a Plaid or anything like that, but still pretty quick. And it's just a dual motor setup. And you know, no crazy specs or anything on it as opposed to something like a P100D that's just insanely quick. This is meant to get you longer distances on more of a budget. But I mean, ride is good. Of course, I had that adjustable suspension going. I was able to move that around, so that's set to low now. And it's pretty quiet for the most part. Road noise is a little prevalent with these 20s here, but not hearing any creaks yet. All right, I just heard one. I think that might have been the spoiler or something. Or it could be those floor mats in the back. Now, one thing I told myself not to forget, which I did anyway, was to mention these, because I always wonder what they do. But these actually just kind of fold there and snap together, which is pretty neat. So you don't have to worry about the sun as much. It's kind of like a visor. And then it just snaps back into place on the left side if you don't want that. But again, I mean, it's a pleasant ride, smooth, and especially for this price point now, with this being an older vehicle, I wouldn't hesitate getting one for this kind of money. Now, with what I just said, build quality can be an issue, but I mean, in a Mercedes, if you're getting a 2016 Benz E-Class, you're gonna have similar issues when it comes to the build. And I mean, pretty much any other vehicle, it depends how you've had it, how it was owned. There are a lot of factors that go into it. But here, I mean, nothing that really bothers me that wouldn't be easily fixed or easily forgettable, if you will. But I mean, just how this thing drives, how it feels, the heated cooled seats work. And I did forget to mention that as well. You do get those dual zone automatic climate controls. So you can just hit this button here, and then on the screen, it'll pull that up down below so I can decide to cool, heat the seat, 3 stages, heated steering wheel as well. So that's pretty easy to use, all in all. I think you have some sort of filter too. I think that's what this is. Now, I remember when these first came out, these were considered 6-figure vehicles. Pretty much the first 6-figure vehicle you could get if you wanted to drive something electric. And it certainly did not disappoint. And you could kind of tell somebody was balling if they had one of these. I mean, still today, it kind of has that same effect. So again, I think that's why this is such a good deal, being at around mid-30s. Even with this kind of mileage, because the only thing you really have to worry about is your range. And these have been tested to still have like 80 to 90% capacity after 200, 250,000 miles. And with Tesla's supercharging network, unless you got like 100 miles on a battery, that's really not going to be an issue for you, because it just takes that quicker to charge the battery up. And I mean, you have great speed and great availability with the Tesla supercharger network. I think another way this is a good buy, especially if you're getting this used, is because for mid-30s, again, this will probably last you a pretty long time, especially if you make sure that you maintain the battery correctly. So not letting it always sink down to its lowest level, but also making sure that you cycle the battery every so often as well with this technology. But I mean, just seamless acceleration there. So I forgot, this is the older Tesla. So in my Tesla, I think you had to hit the stalk twice and you can get the autopilot to come on. But here, you just hit the button right here, down there, and get that to just like, again, in the Mercedes. But I mean, just a fantastic ride coming down the interstate here. pretty clean power. I don't know if the thing is actually on. I have to double check that, because the autopilot didn't come all the way on. So I'm wondering if there's a setting that I didn't do. Probably is, or something in the screen here that was turned off. But you do have autopilot capability again with this if you want to have that semi-autonomous driving going on. Now I am hearing just a little creak when I let off, or I should say put my foot on the pedal to accelerate. Like the brake coming off is creaking a little bit, something like that. Nothing to worry about definitely, but that might need to be lubed up a little bit, I don't know. Or it could be something totally different, but again, I'm sitting here nitpicking, just for those of you that will ask me the questions in the comments. But again, what makes this such a great vehicle, I think, is you feel like $1 million driving this down the road. Even with it being a 2016, it's still a Tesla. And I think here in Middle Tennessee, people were kind of slow getting onto it. It used to be, yeah, well, you're rich if you have a Tesla, this, that, and the other. You can still look, quote unquote, rich while not having to be rich and drive one of these, again, for this price point. And it's still a pretty practical SUV, especially if you have 3 or 4 kids. So I've definitely enjoyed driving this, and I do think that this will be a good long-term vehicle for someone who wants something that looks really fancy, or even something that feels somewhat modern and is still a Tesla. Again, I can't say enough about being in this price point. You'll be in pretty good shape with one of these, even with a somewhat higher odometer reading. But definitely wouldn't mind having one of these again for just all the capability that the Model X had in terms of a tow capacity, your range, just being the first real 3-row electric SUV. But with all that being said, this is going to bring me to the end of my review of this 2016 Tesla Model X 90D.